Today, I'll be repairing this white 3DS XL. Also, please consider subscribing as it helps out the channel. With that, let's move on to the video. The story on this white 3DS XL is, I bought this about maybe a year ago, and my notes say that I couldn't repair it, so it's just been sitting on myself for maybe a year. I think what's wrong was first when I tried to repair it, it popped off, and I couldn't fix it. And I think there's something wrong with the screen, some shell has some problems, and the speaker cable or the camera cable have some issues with it, so I guess. And reviewing these parts, you can see that the shell has some problems, but we should be able to find a replacement. Now, I think I already replaced those, but let's see. I think the screen looks pretty scratched, but the ribbon cable also seems a bit torn. And I think this is the replacement shell I put in. Yep, it's the top shell. And I think this is the replacement inner shell I put in as well. I believe the rest of the console is here, but the motherboard looks pretty good. I think my notes mentioned there are some issues with the motherboard as well. But before we review the motherboard, I want to quickly check out the speaker and camera cable. So I think I originally replaced the speaker cable on this one, but it didn't work, so I want to replace both of these this time. As you can see, this was the camera I took out. As you can see, it has a big tear in it, so we definitely have to replace that. I have my two replacements here, but also I think we have to replace the top screen on this one as well. Yeah, I think my notes mentioned that we have a problem on that one as well. But I believe the main reason I couldn't repair this console was the motherboard. Now I have my actual board on the left and my donor board on the right. As you can see, this is a junk board I pulled off of another 3DS. It has, I think, a good game slot and a charging port. So we have to switch the bad components on the left one with this junk board on the right. I want to closely inspect the motherboard. I did test these, but I think the charging port on this one has some cold solder on it, so it is moving, so it'll be pretty easy to get that off. And I'm reviewing to see that if there's any solder connections on the bottom side of the board. I think it's only on the top, yeah. The new 3DS XLs have ones on the bottom, so it is pretty tricky. And the game slot looks okay as well. I did check out the pins in there. And now I will begin by removing the components on the left one, and let's begin. I will start by attaching the motherboard to these helping hands. They are pretty useful in small like port removals or like component removals like this. I will start with the charging port, so I'm going to apply some flux in here. Now what this does is it traps the heat from my hot air gun to melt the solder. So I will use my heat gun here, set to about 300 to 400 degrees. You don't want to keep it too long, you might melt some of the plastic components around it, but keep it on it for maybe 10 to 15 seconds and it should fall off, yeah, like this. I want to grab it quickly so it doesn't burn my mat, and I will place it in this metal plate. And after that I want to clean the flux off with some IPA so it doesn't get corroded. Before I put in another charge port, I want to remove the game slot as well simultaneously. So my method for this is put some light flux on the solder, and I'm going to take my solder wick, which is a copper wire, and I have a very flat tip on my soldering iron, so I'm just going to press it down to just suck the solder right out of there. So yeah, just going to really get in there. It's set to maybe 450 degrees, my soldering iron. You need to get it really hot to suck out the solder out there. And as you can see, we sucked it all out. And now we have to clean it with a little bit of IPA to get rid of the flux. And this port has 3 more of these solder connectors, so we have to do the same for all 3 of them. Now this part is the tricky bit. So what we have to do is there's like 10 to 15 pins which are soldered on individually. So I want to apply a large amount of flux and heat it up very nicely so we can melt the solder there. I mean, when you do this, it doesn't completely melt. So I'm going to really get in there and I'm going to run 1 round of solder wick over those pins. That should be enough, so I'm going to take my dental pick to pry up the game slot. Probably didn't get out all the solder on these pins, so I need to pry it up, and I'm going to finish up with the heat gun to melt the solder with the last of these pins, so it should be enough to get it out, and there we go, we got it out. So this is our faulty game slot. And before we install the new one, I want to quickly clean up this flux residue with some IPA so our pins don't get corroded. After like 30 minutes, I managed to remove the game slot off of our junk ports. I believe this should be working, but before we install the game slot, I want to put in the charging port first. It is pretty simple to install the charging port, where there's 5 pads which you need to solder around 5 connections from the charging port onto the motherboard. I think that should do it for the charging port. Now let's test it and let's go. We have the orange light that indicates the charging is working. Now let's move on to the hard part of installing the game slot. Now, the hard part about this is you have to align the pins on the game slot with the motherboard, so it is pretty difficult. But the easy part is I'm just going to solder on these 4 points that we desoldered, so I'm going to put in quite a lot of soldering wire in there. So, yeah, that's the third one. And that's the fourth one, so we can solder on. After this one, I'm gonna move on to the pins. I'm gonna apply a lot of flux so we can help the solder flow. We're gonna heat it up, and that should be done. So I'm gonna clean it with some IPA so it doesn't get corroded. Completing our repairs, I want to now check out the motherboard to see if the parts we installed actually work. So we did test out the charge port one. I want to see the feel of a game cartridge in the game slot. So the flap works, so I want to put in a cartridge. I mean, the feel of it is pretty good. I mean, the pins definitely don't have any issue, but I want to test it further, so I'm going to attach all the cables without attaching the shell. I don't recommend testing it like this, but it's the more easier and quicker way to determine if the game slot works. It should be back together enough to test it, so I'm just going to quickly attach a battery and push it on the pins so we can turn it on. And it does turn on, so we definitely did something right. Last time it didn't do that. But most importantly, I want to test out the game slot, so come on, let's put this in. Does it read? Yes! It does read, yes. I mean, that was probably the most hardest repair I've done, but yeah, I think we got our efforts repaid, so let's put this thing back together properly now. Now that we got the game slot right, I want to put this thing back together properly. And I'm going to start by installing a new top screen with a new set of the speaker cable. And I will attach the speaker cable onto the top screen with these 2 ribbon cable connections. Yeah, like that. I'm just going to use my tweezers to close the flaps. Yeah, that's the first one, and that's the second one. I will also add a replacement camera. I think we have to replace all 3 of these components, which is going to be a pretty expensive repair. And I'm going to roll on top of these cables with each other. We're going to roll these up and push it through the hinge. You have to be really careful in this step not to tear or, rip any of the cables, because if you do that, you're going to have to replace the entire thing. Yeah, the speaker cable could be a bit trouble to repair since it's a longer one. So I'm just going to gently push them through the hinge. Yeah, you have to be careful not to scratch any of them while pushing them through that metal circle. Yeah, I'm just going to finalize using my blunt tip tweezers to pull the cables out. Like that. Yep, I think I got it. You have to go really slow here not to tear any of the cables, like I said. And I think they're all in order. Yeah, we did that correct. And I'm going to install the Wi-Fi cable lastly, so after that we can... and you have to get into the slot and flip up the top screen to put it in its shell. And we can place the top screen. It should be a perfect fit in there. And we can now move on to attaching the inner frame to this upper part. So I'll first start by putting the Wi-Fi cable through first. So that has to go through first. And then I'm going to slide all the cables through a little gap through the inner frame, like that. And very gently, not scarring them against the metal circle, I'm just going to push the cables up. I think I got it. It's just a little bit more push. Yeah, we have to get the Wi-Fi cable out the way and push it down. Yep, and that should be fully attached. Now I'll put the console in a certain angle and use my dental pick to lock in the hinge and push it down on it. And I think I got it. Yep, the hinge is locked in. And so I've installed the motherboard and all the cables properly, and I'm finishing up. So I will close the motherboard up and we can test it. And so I've attached the Alt and R buttons, and I'll close up this inner plate. And I think the outer plate was attached, so I'll quickly remove that. And I will put in the battery so we can test it. We did already test out its functionality, so I want to test out to see if the top screen works. So here we go. Let's see if it will turn on and the top screen will work. And there we go. The top screen works. That's great. And I want to check out the other screens quickly. I mean, they look pretty good. The digitizer doesn't seem to have any scratch. I want to check out the touch screen as well. Yep, it works great. Let's see any other flaws. I want to quickly put in a game as well. Test out the slot. Again, let's be sure. Yep, that reads flawlessly. Yeah. I want to install the parts that we have left, so we need to install the outer shells and the screen lens, so let's do that. So let's begin with the outer shell, and I will put this a bit more to the top side, and when it's in, I'm just gonna push it down pretty hard. But I think one of the lenses are unequal, so yep, we have to get in those latches on. So I'm just gonna push it down so it's perfectly level. Yep, like this. Yep, I think we got it. And now let's move on to the bottom plate. Let's make sure the serial number is on there very nicely. And quickly attach it and just screw it in. Yeah, it should be easy. So now it's for the hard part. Let's put on the screen lens. You need to be really careful not to get any dust in there. So use an air canister. I don't have compressed air, so I'm gonna have to use my mouth. And I'm gonna quickly make sure if, let's see, the adhesive is on there very nicely. Yep, just push it down and it should be good. And I'm gonna give you guys a satisfying peel. And now to finish up, I'll quickly screw in the top frame. You need 4 screws, but I'm gonna do this once to show it to you guys. And you need to attach these rubber covers to cover the screws. Yeah, I'm gonna attach brand new ones. Now I can say that, I mean, this was a challenging repair, probably one of the most hardest repairs I've done. I can say that this 3ds XL has been completely fixed.